Hey man, what's going on? Hey friends, how are you? Welcome on back to Football Therapy with me, your host, Jan. How's it going, mate? I hope you're doing well. I really do genuinely hope that. Welcome back to Chelsea News, the daily series here on Football Therapy where I reflect on everything that's being said about Chelsea, giving you my thoughts on it for whatever that's worth. But more importantly, asking for yours. There's been an interview with Cech on The Athletic, speaking about Chelsea Football Club and its current iteration compared to how it was back in the glory days when we had players like Cech, international captains all over the gaff, riddled throughout the starting 11, a titanic team of superstars that would not be beat, and had an unmatched mentality. Of course, we've been struggling with a sort of, you could say an existential crisis in the last few years since the new ownership have come in. A lot of lows, a lot of confusions, uncertainties, a little bit of good vibes in between with some trophies and, a few unearthed gems in terms of players. But ultimately, a very concerning sort of trend, I think. There's been, the uncertainty has grown. There's concerns about the sporting leadership, the hierarchy, their inexperience, perhaps inability to put Chelsea where we should be in terms of continually challenging for top honours and looking like a consistent outfit and organisation. To the point where, of course, there's been protests. Lots of publicised unrest across social media, and down your local pub, chatting to Chelsea fans, they'll be like, "What is happening?" From every level. I haven't read this article yet. I'm looking forward to reacting to it with you on The Athletic. Go check out The Athletic, because Petr Cech is an incredibly intelligent man. Of course, he's the best goalkeeper in our history, but he's a leader as well. But he's he's a multilingual, intelligent chap that was working for Chelsea in the dying embers of the Roman Abramovich reign. Of course, working closely with Marina Granovskaya, and at the time, Thomas Tuchel, Blueco come in, what soon becomes known as Blueco. They clean shop. This isn't unusual. When the company's taken over, this often happens, especially, I think, if there was any sort of geopolitical controversy with the previous ownership, of which there was with Chelsea, rightly or wrongly, they made the decision, we're going to have a clean slate here and start again, and they made a lot of mistakes, and they've also fighting amongst themselves, so I don't need to tell you the full, backstory of the situation here, but we're going to get into this article here today on The Athletic. Like I said, it's the Petr Cech interview, as you can see. Chelsea are completely different from how it was. Cech spent 15 years with Chelsea in various roles, says the club's different now. So we're going to get into this article. In the meantime, thanks for joining me, gang. Of course, daily content here on Football Therapy. So, as always, I'll thank you for liking and subscribing on YouTube, following and 5-starring on the podcast app, simply by searching Football Therapy Podcast. And let's get into it. So, yes, we are in a FA Cup final, which is very Chelsea, but we're not feeling proper Chelsea. I think for a while now, I've always been so mindful, man, to say, because there's a lot of non-Chelsea fans that were criticising Chelsea fans for, moaning or protesting, saying, oh, you've had it so good for so long, and yada, 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 and your Russian oligarch's gone now, and you got to put up with being ran like the rest of us from American consortiums, etc. But the truth is, I think Chelsea fans, this is my opinion, I think Chelsea fans were actually really patient with Bowley, Clearlake, Blueco. I think they were, genuinely. I think they put up with, a lot of, even the Graham Potter era, when there was apathy, mid-table finish, clear dysfunction, the dressing room was bloated, players all over the gaff. They were still being patient, the Chelsea fans, because I think there was an understanding right, the ownership's changed, this is going to be tough. Bowley's been at Stamford Bridge shaking hands, taking photos, saying, we're going to win, we're going to keep winning. People were like, well, Bowley owns Chelsea, yeah? He's the guy. He's the guy who owns the Dodgers. He wins all the time. He tried to buy Chelsea before. He's got Chelsea now, and, he's already tried to sign Cristiano Ronaldo to Chelsea, which, I still think would have been a terrible idea. But it was like, there was this idea of this guy runs a successful sporting franchise, has come to Chelsea. He wants to sign big players. He wants to continue winning. Unlike Abramovich, he's allowed to attend games in the UK and cheer on, which we all used to enjoy back in the day when Abramovich would be cheering on Chelsea wins. So there was this sort of idea that maybe we'll get there, and it's taken 4 years for people to think this just isn't working, or at least this sporting hierarchy isn't working. I do talk about the ownership all the time. Everyone does, all Chelsea content creators. How can you not? But I want to look through the lens of Petr Cech, so this is why we're doing this interview. So I realise I've spoken quite a lot. Some of you sometimes criticise me for not doing really quick, concise, snappy content, and I'm sorry if that's not if I've not been doing that enough for you. But then again, a lot of people say they prefer the sort of long form, casual content. So you could just in football, you just can't keep everyone happy, sadly. But let's get into it. Petr Cech spent 15 years at Chelsea saving penalties as they won the Champions League final in 2012. Oh, sorry, I should say this article is by, let's try not butcher the journalist's name, Namdi Onyegwara. Hopefully not too bad. No run-up of that, just went straight in. He spent 15 years at Chelsea saving penalties as they won the Champions League final in 2012, winning Premier League 4 times, and even speaking to the fans protesting against the Super League in 2021. Yeah, that's another thing. He in that major controversy, the Super League, he went out and faced the fans in the streets. There's those iconic photos of him, Given his association with the club, both as a player and as a technical and performance advisor, which is an interesting role, I think, made up for him, but I think he was good to have around. Tuchel seems to like working with him. Few understand Chelsea better than him, but even he doesn't recognise this new iteration of the West London club. This is when you bring in the new meme of Drogba, I don't recognise my club anymore. It's different, he tells The Athletic. Maybe if I was there on a daily basis, I would recognise Chelsea. I would see it differently. From what you see from the outside, I don't think you can compare because of the vision and the way the club operates, how they want to do things. It's completely different from how it was at Chelsea. What you see now, what the club does, and obviously the personnel, a lot of things have changed, so it's a completely different approach. Different mentality. Different approaches can work, especially in an ever-evolving Premier League landscape, story, narrative, regulations, restrictions. Different approaches have to be utilised at times. But when you say different mentality, that could be scathing. Chelsea will always be in my heart, and I want them to do well, but it is a different club. It's been 4 years since Cech left his role at Chelsea as technical and performance advisor in the summer of 2022. Of course, shortly after Abramovich, who had owned the club since Cech's arrival in 2004, sold it. Following his retirement in 2019, Chelsea, and arguably the Premier League's best ever goalkeeper, and I would say that, in Cech, worked behind the scenes at the club he holds so dear. However, the Clear Lake Capital and Todd Bowley-led consortium takeover of the club, Cech followed Bruce Buck, who I don't miss terribly, and Marina Granovskaya in leaving. Granovskaya, of course, she was, I think, the closest lieutenant to Abramovich, but she was an excellent operator. She ran Chelsea essentially because she was good at it as well. She wasn't just she worked her way up the sort of levels at Chelsea to the point where she was recognized as the most powerful woman in football, a fierce negotiator. And she was really, really excellent for Chelsea. They've just put in, look at this, man. They've just embedded this video in the middle of this article. Let me just show you this. Yeah. Why Chelsea could fall out the Big Six. with Tuchel, Maresca, and then Rosinia looking sad at the end. That I'm who knows? Maybe I'll watch that later for a bit of fun. Jeez Louise! I hope there's some sort of positivity at the end of this, because this is could be a tough read. Let's keep going. Despite that departure, almost half a decade away from Stamford Bridge, Cech does not hide his adoration for Chelsea. The 43-year-old emphasises with the frustration of Chelsea fans at what has been a difficult and sometimes tumultuous, easy for me to say, campaign. I think you can hear my washing machine about to explode. Can you hear that? Is the mic picking up? I think it might be walking around my kitchen. Concerns. Tumultuous campaign. There you go. That word moonwalked straight through at that time. Chelsea are 8th in the Premier League and are in the FA Cup final, but the two permanent head coaches in Maresca and Rosinia have left the club over the course of the season. Cech said this: the legacy of the club was being, past tense, winning trophies. So if you take any Chelsea fan who started following the team over the last 15 years, all they've seen is success. I mean, obviously, not yet. There are fans who have been following Chelsea for longer than 15 years. When you have that period where you are not as successful and the positions in the league are not good, then of course the fans will feel that. The fans will question that. And I think that's exactly where the club is at the moment. Under Blue Coat's ownership, just to remind you guys, Chelsea have committed approximately £1.5 billion on transfer fees, with a clear focus on younger players. A focus, by the way, they're apparently readdressing or looking to tweak in their period of self-reflection. We will believe it when we see it, gang. Let's move on to the next section here. The likes of Cole Palmer and Moises Caicedo have proven to be the more successful examples of the transfer strategy. I mean, I'd argue Caicedo is easy to say, but he did also cost £115 million as a Premier League record signing. I would probably say the more likes of Cole Palmer and maybe like Estevao and Santos, like these kind of signings are probably the ones that they'd point to going, we're clever. But, you know, Caicedo buying a player that Liverpool already had £111 million transfer agreed for isn't like, you know, scouting or like strategy genius, is it? It's just pay a lot of money for a wicked player that another Premier League top rival wants. Cech has his doubts over the strategy. Not just you and everyone else on planet Earth, apart from Wyn Stewart. When asked about the focus on signing young players, Cech said, quote, "You have to look at what you want to achieve. You can have young, talented players, and you can win. But it's very rare that you manage to do that. If you concentrate on bringing young, talented players and make them better, that's one thing. But if you're going to win every season, to compete every season, that does not go together." Truth. It was so fanciful, wasn't it? Like this sort of arrogance that they'll build this sort of like, I don't know, like super young team that just find a bit of momentum, catch fire, and then just win for the rest of their careers. And some, you know, it was just like this perfect idea, right? That if they always said this ownership and the structure and the hierarchy, and as in like they genuinely said this, as in Bowley would say, I'm pretty sure Bedadik Barley would have said it. Certainly, I think probably the sporting director said it. Remember that one interview feature on the Telegraph with Matt Law, that they all lined up and joined up, and they all said one thing, that youth is massively underrated in the game of football. Like it's not utilised enough in terms of capturing talent, cheaper money, longevity, asset protection. That they analysed the game, the data, and they said people aren't putting enough stock into young players. And it's a very data-led approach because they've learnt now, and hopefully they've learnt in this 4 years, that actually there are these unquantifiable, intangible elements of just having a big boy on the pitch who's, you know, not a child. Cech goes on to say, you have to change your philosophy. Certain things don't go to... So this is Cech saying you have to change. There's a headline. Certain things don't go together because in order to win a Champions League or Premier League, these are really tough competitions. And you have to be consistent. Of course, we've been nowhere near consistent. You need to have a strong core of the team, and then you can bring young, talented players who will grow faster and then be held by the experienced players to help them navigate through difficult times when they come. And we're not talking about, like, with the greatest of respect, Tosin as a senior player, a free transfer from Fulham. We're talking about real big boy settings, especially, you know, when your young leaders like Reece James and Levi Colwill aren't on the pitch, and your other leader's not fluent in English and is twerking for paella most of the time. We are in trubs, basically. It's, of course, like, just makes me sad to think of this team of, like, freaking Lampard, JT, Ballack, Cech, Drogba, Essien, just these like superstar leaders all over the pitch. The standards would be of like biblical proportions, you know. And if someone makes a misplaced like something, the whole team doesn't fall like a house of cards. It just wasn't Chelsea. That's never been Chelsea. This is what probably Cech is evaluating right now, and what he's asserting in this interview. When the majority of your squad is young and doesn't have experience with going through difficult times. I mean, they're having experience going through difficult times, but they're not having a resolution. Yeah, they're just having the difficult times. I don't know if this analogy is gonna work. Yeah, how can I crowbar this in about, you know? Yeah, because you need to have the resolution to learn. You know, yeah, maybe I can make this work. Parenting. So I'm not a parent, right? I'm not a parent. I'm 37. I don't have a kid, but I've got mates who have parents, you know, and stuff like that. And I've obviously been a child. Parents used often would argue in front of their kids, send their kids to bed, but then the parents would make up. But the kids would have already been to bed. So they don't see the resolution of an argument. They just see the argument, retain the trauma, go to bed and grow up with this trauma neurologically embedded in their brain. But good parents like show the children the making up and like, you know, fulfilling the cycle, and therefore there's like a healing thing there. The children just seeing the trauma is Chelsea Football Club losing the games, conceding the goals. There's no resolution. There's no learnings. There's no full circle. There's just trauma, downward spiral, and they're not learning. There's no parents on the pitch. Have I made this work? I'm not entirely sure. Hopefully there's some little method to my madness. Let's keep going. So they're going through difficult times, and they almost look at each other thinking, okay, who's going to help me? It might be difficult for them. You need to realize what stage you're in and what is needed. Yeah, there is that kind of, where's the daddy? Where's the parents that are going to look after us? Do you know what I mean? Where's the resolution to this trauma? And I cover Chelsea for a job. It's trauma. I love Chelsea as a fan. Trauma in my heart. As there's a job, trauma in my brain. It's going to be the freaking name of my autobiography. Trauma in my brain. Chelsea, Cech also believes Chelsea's goalkeepers, I gotta love this one, have struggled because of the situation around them. Oh, it's goalkeepers union stuff, innit? He's going to protect them. Okay, right. It can be argued that since the departures of Cech in 2015 and Thibaut Courtois in 2018, Chelsea have not been able to replace the pair. Edouard Mendy came closest to reaching the heights of his predecessors before his eventual drop in form and departure, of course, in the summer of 2023. Yeah, there's a lot of revisionism with Edouard Mendy. Of course, he was also benched by Kepa. Kepa re-benched him. He came in, benched Kepa. Had an amazing 18 months, won the Champions League, the Carabao Cup, the Super Cup, AFCON, like all in this like amazing period as a goalkeeper, like a crazy 18 months considering his life story is an amazing achievement. But then sort of went off the boil, went to Saudi or whatever. But he wasn't like Courtois Cech levels for us, was he? So currently, goalkeepers, Gaga, Slanina, Rob Sanchez, Georgi Petrovic, Jorgensen and Mike Penders have all been signed under Blueco's ownership. Sanchez has staked the biggest claim to be Chelsea's number one, but the Spain international has not been without high-profile mistakes and was dropped from the starting lineup in March. That was a Rosinia thing, but I kind of get it. I'm never going to be like convinced on these, man. Let's have a look at them. Nice picture of them here. Here we go. Yep. There's our boys. It's so sad in the context of listening to Petr Cech talk about Chelsea and then just wah, wah, wah. Anyway. High-profile mistakes from Rob Sanchez saw him dropped in March. Cech said this: the goalkeepers are not being helped by the overall situation. I would tend to agree, actually. I think McFarlane's made it easier for Rob Sanchez in goal. Excuse me. As a goalkeeper, if your team is struggling, then you have a bit of a problem because yourself too, you're exposed and there's a lot of pressure on you that can affect your performance because as a goalkeeper, here's that goalkeepers union guys, you rely on teamwork and the help of the people around you or the system around you. A flawed system and a bunch of not confident children. That's Chelsea. He goes on to speak about Sanchez, affectionately referring to him as Rob. Rob, you can see, he's got a huge potential. And there's games where you see it. You see his ability, his shot-stopping ability. I tend to agree, Petr. Big Pete's onto something here. And the saves he can produce at times. But there are things for him to work on as well, like his consistency. Indeed, there's games when he obviously makes wrong decisions. And as a goalkeeper, you know these decisions are very visible. Yeah, now and again, when his head goes, he'll run out or do something silly, won't claim a ball, or like it'll do some really poor passing. He can't pass out of the back, even though we were told that's his vibe. That is categorically not his vibe, mate. So, do you know what I mean? The situation with Philip Jorgensen is an interesting one because every time he's got a chance to come in to the team a few times, he's got injured and things did not happen as well for him as he would have liked. I just don't think he's good enough, personally. Based on their abilities, I'm not surprised Chelsea brought them in, but I don't think the team has managed to get the most out of them. Very diplomatic from the Chelsea legend there. Cech did not only have opinions on Chelsea's current crop of shot stoppers, but also the modern style of goalkeeping. Clubs now want goalkeepers to be able to play out from the back and be comfortable on the ball. Towards the latter stages of his career, Cech faced criticism on that front in the summer of 2018, also while playing, of course, for Arsenal, Unai Emery. Yeah, but also, even since that time, I'd argue that we're sort of someone like Guardiola, who was at the ultimate footballing goalkeeper coach, has gone for Gigi Donnarumma, who's not a footballing goalkeeper, and he's telling him to like go long and just not muck about. So maybe like, you know, 2026 Man City would have gone for like a Cech over Edison. I think Czech's better than Edison anyway, but you know what I mean, that kind of style that doesn't need to be messing about with the ball about. Cech says, I didn't mind it. If you want to build up from the back, it depends on how the team cooperates. You have to know where the space is and what your options are. When done right, obviously it's a big help. You can see, you know, with Mikel Arteta, with Guardiola, teams that are big in the build-up, the goalkeeper is much easier because they have options. Yeah, but like I said, Gigi Donnarumma now. Guess he's not thinking specifically about Donnarumma here. Sometimes you see the keepers who play from the back, but their options are very limited, and the goalkeeper then has to dribble and find the solutions inside his own box because there is no other solution. Yada. I'm not a fan of that because at the end of the day, building from the back is for you to create chances, create space, to create an advantage, not to put yourself under pressure. Church! Preach! Check! Oh my god, the pressure I've endured watching this stuff at the back. But then again, of course, you don't want to just kick out to touch or just give them, you know, win the second ball or whatever. But you see teams that overuse it and they don't do it that well, like Chelsea. But I never minded. The more touches you have is more fun for you as well. You're playing and you're more involved rather than just watching. Yeah, I suppose there is just an element of that as well. However, there is no confusion in what Cech believes is the biggest contribution to a goalkeeper. There you go. He references Man City's Gianluigi Donnarumma. There you go. At the end of the day, you'll win if your goalkeeper makes saves. It's important to be able to do what your manager asks, but you will never win on passes in the box. Again, preach. You will always win if the goalkeeper makes important saves. That's what makes the difference. Donnarumma was not particularly good with his feet in the game. He gave away a goal, but then he made 2 important saves for Arsenal to lose the game in the end. Yeah, important. And of course, you look at David Raya. He's brilliant with it. David Raya is probably like the form goalkeeper, regrettably, in the Premier League. Yeah, man, it's very interesting. Go and check out The Athletic. I love Petr Cech. He's super intelligent. Apparently, like, I've never met him, but apparently you can like talk to him about anything, like crops, commodities, like horse racing. Literally, he's like one of the most like knowledgeable dudes ever. Of course, he's multilingual as well. Great guy, very good footballer, and of course, well, the best goalkeeper in Premier League history for my money. Still a Chelsea fan, lovely to see, expressing concerns about the way Chelsea play, protecting the goalkeepers a little bit in goalkeepers union, but also most pertinently, which will be the biggest like aggregated headlines from this, is his expression of the concern for the lack of experience in this Chelsea team. Further laying on thick this publicised concern and criticism from, big notable voices, whether it's ex-players, current Chelsea players, and of course people in the media about their model and needs to change. Will it change? I mean, this is such a huge summer for Blueco. They've been dealing with protests from both Strasbourg and Chelsea fans. The criticism's been from every single angle for their model, their spend, their methodologies and their choices. And the ultimate company Blueco man in Rosenia, who, I was hoping could do well I liked him. But to give him a 6.5-year deal and for him to last 100 days, including an international break, is nothing. For me, it's not on Rosenia. It's on them. You're the knobheads in the room. Yeah. You are the knobheads in the room, and it's time to take a look in the mirror. Etc. So, let me know your thoughts. I, of course, upload every day here on Football Therapy, and I'm delighted to have you with me, mate. So consider liking and subscribing on the YouTube. Thank you for following and 5-starring on your podcast apps by simply searching Football Therapy Podcast on Spotify and Apple Pods and all that, mate. And, keep it locked. I hope to see you back here soon. We'll get through it together. All right, peace.